Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the 10-Minute Book Talk, where three best-selling authors talk all things bookish for you for 10 and short, sweet minutes every week. And today I am joined by my permanent host, the fabulous Rachel Linden, who's rocking the scarf today, Ray. I know, she has the best scarf. She really does. And normally Catherine Ray is with us, but she is working on a really big project. And so Julie Cantrell has cleverly and kindly decided to join us as our extra guest host today. So thank you, Julie, for being with us. And today, my friends, I have the privilege, the pleasure, the joy of introducing our guest, Jeffrey Blount. Jeffrey and I met not too long ago. I grabbed his book. I fell in love with this book. I have been stopping strangers on the street and telling them to read it. I have to say, I joke around a lot, but in all sincerity, powerful is a word that is overused in literature, but I am telling you, this book, Jeffrey, is powerful.
Tell us the title. We can't see the title.
I'm sorry. The Emancipation of Evan Walls. It is a fabulous, fabulous novel. Jeffrey, tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, it begins in 1993 when Evan Walls, the main character, and his wife Izzy have just had their first child. And he should be just excited, but he's absolutely terrified. And he's terrified because he's afraid that his daughter will suffer the pain and indignities that he had to go through as a young person. And he doesn't want that. But he hasn't really shared all of this pain with his wife. And she finally says, Evan, you just have to tell me what's happening. And that's the only way I can help you help our daughter. So he takes us back to 1968. He's 10 years old. He's on the back porch surrounded by family and friends. And there's a group of African Americans talking about their plight in their hometown of Canaan, Virginia. And Evan has the notion that education, there's an inkling that comes to him from listening to the adults talk, that education is his way out of this, to rise above this. And so he makes a declaration. He stands up in front of everybody and says, I'm going to be somebody. I'm going to get an education. And I don't care if I have to go to school with white kids because integration is looming. And he ends up, that proclamation puts him on a road between two very different cultures. One that would refer to him as the uppity N-word, and how dare he thinks he's capable of competing with these white kids academically. And in 1968, a black kid wouldn't be surprised by that. But he was devastated by the reaction of his own community, who decided that his intellectual desires were color-coded white, and that if he wanted to do that, he was acting white and acting outside of his culture. So he would spend the rest of his time in that town trying to prove that he's capable on one hand, and on the other hand, trying to prove that he's actually black enough to remain part of his culture and his community.
Jeffrey, I am amazed and very intrigued by all of those things I love to explore in reading and writing. I'm fascinated by systems that aim to keep us down. And it seems like that's what your character is fighting against. He's not only being cut down by the white community, by his own community as well, and just trying to be who he was born to be, just trying to live the life that he's supposed to live. And so how did you decide to explore this story by going back to a 10-year-old's voice? I love that. And then bringing us up through his youth, going back to the roots of that wounding. How did you feel inspired by that boy? How did he come to you?
The 10-year-old part comes because the catalyst for this book, I will say that I had experienced some of this when I was growing up, but never enough to really sit down and write about it. But the catalyst for this book came from an article I read where an African-American reporter was staying in what we referred to back then as the projects. And he came across this story while he was writing other stories about life in the project of a 10-year-old boy who loved going to school. We would say he was young, gifted, and black back in the day. And he just loved the idea of school. He was a straight A student, and he paid for it all the time coming home from school. Kids from his own community would attack him physically, verbally. And when the reporter asked the mother, he said, I know this must be horrible for you that you're going through this and watching your child go through this. And she looked at the reporter and she said, I wish he would just, want to grow up to be a janitor or something and stop causing me so much trouble. Yep. Well, in that moment, my heart just dropped because, I had been there a little bit. And that story, that was the catalyst for this book. And Evan is 10 years old when you meet him in 1968 in the book because of this little boy from that story.
Well, I'm hooked. I'm going to get this book right away. Amazing. Yeah.
And I'm curious. So I haven't read it yet. Maria's been singing its praises, so it is going to go to the top of my TBR pile.
Thank
but
you, Rachel.
I'm curious. I always look for the sparks of light in stories, and stories that have difficulty and challenge. And so, Evan is obviously going through so many difficult things, and yet he does have some champions. He's got Mama Jenny and Bo Jack. And so, can you tell us a bit about that theme, the theme of champions, people that are for you, people that see you and champion who you are, and what you wanted to convey in the story with that?
The wisdom of years lived is underrated. And my parents, my mom is the inspiration for the heart of Mama Jenny, the character, and my dad for the heart of Bojack, the character. And to have someone in your life with unconditional love and support when you're going through something like this, that can ground you, that you always know there's a place you can go and lay down your head. There's a place you can go and cry, and people are not going to tell you how you have to be. They're just going to hold you and let you cry and get it out of your system, so you can go back and fight another day. Those, without having someone else like that in your life, you really don't have a chance. And there are a couple of other characters in the book that reflect this. And I wanted it to be seen that how important Mama Jenny and Bojack were to Evan, that they, without them in his life, there's no way this 10-year-old boy could have continued to dream his dream and to negotiate society and the things that were happening to him. And there are other characters in the book who are not able to, who don't have that kind of love and support and aren't able to navigate. So the reader's able to see this is what happens when we don't have the mentor and the love, and this is what is possible when we do have the mentor and the love. So that's why they're there. And I just wanted readers to understand, all of us need that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Amen.
That is something that jumped out to me. Obviously, Evan's experience is very different from mine, very different from many people's, but he is so relatable. The themes in this book are so relatable because it gets down to the most basic human need, what hate does to us.
Right.
What hate not only does, I think, to the person who is experiencing it, but also to the person who is giving it. It disfigures us. It makes us less than we are meant to be. On the other hand, there is the power of love and how love changes us. And then just that universal need we all have for love and acceptance. So that's not a question. That's just a discussion book. And I can tell, I mean, I know you've written other things, but I just could tell almost from page one that this was the book of your heart.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
I don't normally do this. Now, when I finish the book, I never read the acknowledgments in a novel because I want to move on. I couldn't give up reading your book. So I read the acknowledgments, and I love this little story that I found in the acknowledgments. And it says, and finally, thank you to the gentleman at the copying shop on Wisconsin Avenue across from the post office. Back in the day, before email, I handed him a 400-page manuscript in a box. He opened the box to check out the contents. He looked at the title page, looked up with a big smile on his face and said, "Is this you? You wrote this?" I told him it was definitely me. He closed the box, patted the top, and said, "We will take great care of this." He reached out and took my hand. "Thank you, sir. I hope my story finds its way to you." I would like to spend all day with you, but it's the 10-minute book. Like reflecting on this, I just know that this is the story of your heart, that it was probably years in the making.
Absolutely. Decades.
Yeah, and I want to tie it in with the final question we have for you, and I think somehow I know the answer to all of them already. Jeffrey Blount, what is bringing you joy right now?
Well, I'm so happy to be here with you guys to talk about Evan Walls, because Evan Walls is bringing me joy right now, quite a bit of it. I told this story because there are kids like Evan living today, hiding in plain sight, some of whom it's been so bad they've taken their own lives. And so this mission, this book has been a mission for me to help people see those children. And thankfully, the book has been well received. And I had the pleasure of speaking at the National Association for Gifted Children recently. Thousands of people there, all professionals who, and they read the book, and they had me there to tell them about these kids, to help them recognize these children, and to suggest ways that they could help those children. I'm going to be speaking to brightandquirky.com in their summit, 30,000 people over 100 countries, to speak about children who want to dream unencumbered and how we can help them get there. So it is amazing to me that something I sat in a room and wrote can actually affect change and make people come together and want to help the kids that I wrote about. So that is bringing me joy every day. I receive emails and I receive requests to speak and all of those things every day for quite some time now. Evan Walls is bringing me great joy.
Well,
Amazing.
friends, you have heard me say it before, fiction is powerful. And of all the powerful fiction I have read recently, The Emancipation of Evan Walls tops my list. Jeffrey Blount, thank you so much for joining us here on the 10-Minute Book Talk. And friends, thank you for joining us today. And we hope you'll be back next week for 10 minutes where we talk all things bookish with you. See you next week.